What's up, guys? Welcome to the NeoVintage podcast. This is Jabril, and I am with...
Hey, everyone. Steve here.
And welcome to the second episode. Look at us. 2 episodes in.
The sequel.
I'm really excited to do this, and we have a really long show for you guys. We have a bunch of stories, so hopefully we'll make decent time. Last week was, 45 minutes or so, so we'll try to get you out of school in time. All right, so if you don't know about this show, we're kind of a multi-platform podcast. We talk about all different things, gaming, what games we like. So let's get started on the next topic.
So let's always catch up really quick on what games we were playing. What have you been playing?
So BioShock, it's been on PlayStation Plus. I'm having a great time. This is probably like the third time I played it because I played it when it came out. I played it when they ported it to PS4, and now I'm playing it again. Love this game, and it gets me really excited about what the possibilities are in the future for that. Still finishing up Pokemon, and then I've been dabbling again with The Witcher since the show has me motivated to jump into that. So I've been balancing those three, additional to coffee talk, here and there, as I talked about last week.
Not bad, not bad. I have not been playing too much. I've been playing still the Persona Fire Emblem crossover on Switch, the Tokyo Mirage.
Yep.
It's good. It's more of a streamlined Persona. You don't have like the daily activities to like go home, do homework. It's all focusing more on like performances and stuff like that, like a J-pop kind of vibe. And you have a couple of fan favorite Fire Emblem characters in there, but they don't look like themselves, so it's weird the way they did the licensing. So that's really all I've been playing, actually. Just kind of, it's a JRPG, so I'm trying to really like take a big chunk.
It's a long game?
Yeah, I'm trying to take a big chunk. I heard it's like 35 hours.
It's not too crazy.
So it's not the craziest thing, but
it's not Dragon Quest.
Yeah, it's not Dragon Quest or Persona 5. But I'm having fun with it. The characters are fun. A lot of the situations are, it's a very Japanese heavy game, so I'm having fun with it though. It's a good time.
All right, yeah, I really want to take a look at that game because I've heard good things when it came out in Wii U, and then they ported it, and then I've heard of like another set of good things, so people are obviously paying attention to it, so I really want to jump into that. All right, so we have a new little section for you guys. I wanted to give a game shout out to Atomic Heart. It's something I caught wind of on Twitter. I don't hear too many people talking about it, and for you BioShock fans, I think you guys are going to really like this. I'm going to include a link down below so you can guys check out the trailer. There's not too much we know, so I did a little bit of background research onto it, and I believe the team's name is Mundfish, but they're like a smaller team, and they're working on this new BioShock-inspired game. It's an action RPG. It's going to be multi-platform, so you guys are going to be able to play it on PC, PS4, and Xbox. No word on a Switch port. We'll see. It's kind of hit or miss with those ports. But I would highly recommend you guys take a look at this. I think we might have something good here. What Outer Worlds was to Fallout, we might have something for BioShock. Who knows? It could be terrible for all we know. It's really early on. We don't have a release date or anything like that. But you just watched the trailer right before the show. What did you think about it?
I did. It's, like you said, it is super BioShock. Like, immediately almost gave me the We Happy Few kind of vibe. And it's but the way they're plugging all these little gadgets in, and it was like that's the power up system, definitely was just immediately like, well, this is definitely a BioShock inspired game. And we've had kind of a BioShock drought because everyone always assumed We Happy Few just because it looked like BioShock was gonna be BioShock, and it wasn't. It was that is nothing
far from it.
Far from BioShock, and it's its own thing. But so this feels like it's gonna really come in. I mean, we're still so far off from other games that are announced for that kind of style, so at least you have something hopefully soon to kind of keep you satisfied for a while. Yeah, satiated for
and that's kind of what Outer Worlds did for the Fallout drought, because we're super far out from what Starfield, the Skyrim sequel or whatever, the Elder Scrolls takes place. We'll see. We'll be lucky if that's on PS5.
I'd be surprised. I'd be super surprised if it was.
What, 2024? At the earliest, probably.
I think Starfield has to come out first.
Because that's going to have a long incubation cycle, too. Because that, if we know anything about Bethesda Studios, is that they're not the fastest teams. They don't have the fastest turnarounds. So we're assuming that they're working on Starfield now. So it's probably going to be a good couple years in between that. I mean, Skyrim came out in 2011, I believe. Yeah. So it's been like 9 years since the last major Elder Scrolls edition, with exception for the online game. But that's obviously ZeniMax.
True.
So...
yeah.
All right, straight into our stories then.
So the first one on the news doc here is actually kind of an update, where last week we talked about a rumor that The Wonderful 101 was coming to Kickstarter via Platinum Games to be ported to Switch, PS4, and then hopefully further down the line. I think literally the next day their Kickstarter went fully live. I think they knocked out the Switch port in like 20 minutes.
Really fast.
It was like super fast, and within an hour I think they knocked it out pretty well. So I mean, congratulations to Platinum for at least knowing there's an interest in this game. This is one of those games I never picked up on Wii U. Apparently nobody picked it up on Wii U.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to check it out. I think it's, let's see where it's, I haven't checked it recently. The last time I checked it was like just on track still hitting
millions.
all their millions of hitting their stretch goals.
So I'm curious about two things. One thing I'm curious how does this fall on the Kickstarter game things? Because I know Mighty Number 9 did some serious numbers, Bloodstained did some serious numbers. So I'm curious to see, is this on track to be one of the most successful fundraisers, Kickstarted games ever? And also, I'm curious to know Nintendo's reaction to this, because the rumor goes that they did pitch this to Nintendo and they weren't really interested in a port of this, which is surprising because it seems like Nintendo is willing to port anything and everything to the Switch right now. So I wonder how they're feeling about this, seeing this amount of fan engagement. Like, maybe we should have been behind this, because I'm imagining, since it's been Kickstarted, a majority of the profits are probably going to go straight into platinum at this point now, since Nintendo, other than maybe some co-IP ownership, are not going to really get too much kickbacks or royalties on their end. So
pretty much, except for maybe like the percentage they get for just having it on Switch. But now you got to think like install base, because the second stretch goal I think was Sony PlayStation 4, and that install base is look at the size of that install base. So it is interesting to think where Nintendo is in that position. What other, because this game was published by Nintendo on Wii U, so what other Platinum IPs that were published by Nintendo can come over? I know everyone's always already jumping to, they want the Bayonetta,
because only the first one's
only the first one, and we have the
Vanquish collection
and the Vanquish and Bayonetta collection coming out, so hopefully we'd see a second one, and then at some point the third one. Those were probably way far out, because that's got to be more of a big exclusivity deal.
How Nintendo are with their IP. They got that on show clothes.
Exactly. So is it their IP? Who owns the IP still? Because I know Platinum keeps saying Nintendo funded it. So what did funded mean? Just trusted you guys? Because, you're making a second one with Nintendo. So you got to think something went right, and the numbers are speaking, I guess. So good for them, I guess.
Yeah, shout out to Platinum, man. I'm really excited to, and I'll probably get this game now with all this fanfare. I'm curious to see what all this is about. What got $1.5 million of people interested? I'm curious to see what that's all about.
No, for sure. It looks like Beautiful Joe, but it doesn't play like Beautiful Joe.
Yeah.
So we'll see where they land on that.
All right, our second story. The PS5 site is finally up, and we have a statement. So I'm going to read that statement for you guys. You click the link onto the site, and this is what it says. We've begun to share some of the incredible features you can expect from PS5, but we're not quite ready to fully unveil the next generation of PlayStation. And then it basically prompts you to like a sign-up little page. So if they're saying pretty explicitly that they're not ready to display too much stuff about the PS5, it makes it pretty abundantly obvious that a PS5 reveal that was rumored since December pretty much is pretty unlikely at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. Again, that rumor and expectation comes from, because I think this was about the time they announced the PlayStation 4 event, was like roughly a month ahead. So everyone assumed, well, February again, it's going to be that. This pretty much puts all those rumors to rest, that the event's not coming this month. Could it still come? I hope so. I wish they would host some sort of event. But that's really what I got from this, was they're not going to have an event this month. I don't even know when would they. They're not going to choose a trade show, I don't believe, to want to do this.
Yeah, they're not at E3 this year.
They won't be at E3,
so it just makes me wonder we have a holiday release schedule, judging right now. That can mean a lot of things. That can mean as early as November, October, maybe the very tail end of October into the latest part of December, but no further, obviously, than the 25th, which is Christmas. That's typically and you don't launch anything after Christmas. From Christmas to pretty much the February, nobody really touches that area. So I'm curious to see when a reveal comes. Are they going to do something where they do like maybe a September reveal for like a November release, like something really close, so it's a full featured reveal? They got the price point, they got the final look at the console, they have the launch lineup, like everything is solidified? Or are they gonna maybe drip feed things? So a little bit of information here. They dropped the logo. I'm just wondering, is a major full reveal even coming, or are they gonna deliver it piecemeal until like a final PlayStation Direct type thing where they kind of put all the information together?
I think that is a Sony move. That's
what I'm saying.
Is what I think. It's a huge mistake not to have something out before E3, because you got at E3, Nintendo's kind of there with their games, but Microsoft's going to be there, and the Xbox One Series X, or Xbox Series X, whatever they called it, is going to be there, and that's what people are going to be talking about.
They're going to dominate.
To not have a event prior to where you have the spotlight on you. If they wait till August, unless they have a lot to show, a lot to prove, you're going to be kind of forgotten because everyone's going to be talking about Xbox coming out of E3. That's the hardware that's going to be there, the controls are going to be there, and the games are going to be there. It's fine, we'll see, game trailers with the PlayStation 5 logo, but people want to see the console. That's really the thing. They want to see the console, they want to see who's standing behind this, and they want to see where they want to put their money. These consoles are probably going to line up close to, I know we have a discussion later, pricing's probably going to be pretty close. Why choose comparable PlayStation over the Microsoft console?
And I just think it's unwise to give Microsoft all of that stage by themselves. But if they're going to have some kind of major reveal around E3, then it makes me wonder, then what's the point of not attending E3? I wonder, are they really just checked out of E3 and they're just taking all of it into their own hands and they're going to have their PSXs and they're going to have, maybe they show up at GDC or whatever, and they're just not really interested on that competition level at E3? Or do they really are not ready to show anything off and they're just going to pawn it off afterwards, which it seems really close to launch and unwise at this point, because if you look at the PS4 launch, it was around February, if I'm not mistaken.
The announcement was.
Yeah, the announcement.
Yeah, because I think it was almost, people even suspected the year to the day they had announced that they were going to do the PlayStation 1, and nothing, radio silence. And then shortly after, the statement came out. So, like you said, I think it is very bad for them to be so quiet. And I do think it's a mistake for them not to be at E3 this year, because you're launching a console, and I understand E3's kind of lost its little flames.
It's lost luster, yeah.
But you gotta remember, more than ever now, fans are actually going. It's not just IGN, Eurogamer, and whatever other companies go. It's a whole lot more fan base. You want them to be there, seeing your console, getting their hands on the DualShock 5, and persuading them almost. They kind of have this attitude where they're expecting, the millions and millions of PlayStation 4 owners will just buy a PlayStation 5.
Yeah. And
if the 360 to Xbox One showed anything, that's not necessarily true. Just off name recognition. It's not going to happen.
And they're on an upward swing coming out of the PS4, so I'm not worried about them flopping in any form or fashion. It's Microsoft who kind of has the most work to do to really sell that value proposition to the consumer. But I think they need to re-examine their strategy when coming into this next cycle, because forward momentum at the beginning of a life cycle is everything. Because look, the Xbox One was coming straight out of the 360, which it didn't ultimately win the console generation in terms of sales, but it was a well-regarded machine. Mm-hmm. And because of the way they presented themselves initially, it was a real uphill battle for them.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious to see how they inevitably come out.
It is. We'll see what's going on. And staying on the topic of next gen, so we have the PS5 pricing debacle. Not really. I haven't heard really many people talk about, but there's a speculative quote coming out where they're saying that the chief financial officer from Sony hasn't determined the PlayStation 5's price because they're waiting for Microsoft. I'm trying not to laugh, but they're waiting for Microsoft to announce the price. That's a load. I don't know where they got that speculative. Again, there's no direct quote. It's all speculative. It's all rumors. They have the price point. There's no way that Microsoft doesn't have the price point for their Xbox and that Sony doesn't have the price point for their PlayStation 5, and you're probably looking minimum $500 and up.
There's no way it's below that. Not with the specs that they've shown.
Yeah, there's no way that they're waiting for the competition to announce so they can come undercut it. That did work in their favor this current gen, but that's because Microsoft was pushing the Kinect. You could not buy a launch Xbox One without a Kinect.
And that boosted it pretty much about $100 at that point.
Yeah, it was $500 compared to a PlayStation 4, which was $400, which was sweet spot.
Perfect.
So there's no way. I just don't when I saw this headline, I was like, there's no way. Why would you wait? That's like saying Apple's not going to give you a price on their phone until Samsung drops their new Galaxy. The prices are always very similar, and that's stuff that's decided way early on in investors and stuff.
Yeah, and we were talking about it before the show, that if you understand how corporations work, you know how they focus group things. They have fan reactions, see what people are feeling. Microsoft doesn't really play too much of a role, and I'm sure one hand knows what the other hand is doing, generally speaking. So I'm pretty sure that Microsoft has a rough idea of what Sony's doing, and Sony vice versa. But there's no way that they're waiting to see what Microsoft's doing. And if you know anything about Sony, you know that they have horse blinders on.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're doing what we want, and you have to force their hand to do industry norms at this point. If you look at the way crossplay and stuff like that, name changes and stuff like that, they're very much like, we have our strategy and we're going to do what we want. Since when do they ever look to Microsoft for anything? And I feel like maybe in this next gen, Microsoft may force their hand in terms of the way they approach PlayStation now, but there's no way anything as big as a price point of a new console is shaped by Microsoft's strategy in any capacity.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking the amount of money. They know what the amount of money they want to make on this. They know the bottom lines. The higher ups up there want to know how much they're going to gain, and that's all price points. That's, you have to know. Like, they know the release date. They know, the features. They know the system's probably being ordered in parts, if not already being assembled, if there aren't any major delays. So you have to assume like things are on the roll, and that's just one of the things they're announced. That they're waiting for the reveal of the play. Again, we don't have the console. They haven't seen the system yet. We have that fake or maybe real dev kit, the little pizza holder. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen the console yet, so don't expect to hear the price. That'd be weird to them announce the price of the system before showing the system, before showing what first party stuff is going on. And like you said, they're gonna take influences from Microsoft. The pricing is not gonna be the thing. Like, Microsoft can come out dirt cheap, and they're not gonna be like, oh, well, we gotta sell it for even cheaper.
Yeah, and speaking of the price, before we move on, console manufacturers, with exception for Nintendo, typically sell at a loss. Mm-hmm. But if you pay attention to Sony financials, Sony, as the generations progress, are becoming more and more reliant on PlayStation. So it makes me wonder at this point, when will that crossover and PlayStations will stop selling at a loss to ensure the viability of Sony as a corporation as a whole? At some point, I feel like they're not going to be able to sell at that loss the same way. But it's going to become a harder sell, not to mention if Microsoft's willing to sell at a loss because they're not as reliant as the Xbox brand. So I'm just curious to see at any point, will PlayStation be willing to take that risk again like they did during the PS3 generation and go for that higher price point? Mm-hmm. But in order to do that, they would really need to have their ducks in a row in terms of like backwards compatibility, stuff like that, and power. They need to make it a dramatically different offering for Microsoft if they ever wanted to go for anything like that. For
sure. You can't get into that debacle again where like Sony can't come out and be like, oh, PlayStation 5, $700. $700? And I know that's like an outrageous statement, but that's crazy. How people are expecting the system to be $400? It's not going to be $400. I'd be amazed if it's $400 because that's selling it at probably a significant loss, and they're hoping with enough volume you'll cover it. Xbox is probably doing kind of the opposite. They're focusing on the service. They're talking about their Game Pass. They're talking about Xbox Project X Cloud, the streaming. That's where they're really focused on, because selling hardware is a tough, and they know more than anyone. Tablets sells, they sell tablets compared to selling it to Apple's tablets and stuff like that. So you gotta figure that both companies kind of have an idea of what they're doing. Yeah, something tells me though we'll know the answers to a lot of these relatively soon. So the fourth story we have here is Dan Houser leaving Rockstar. Now this is a big thing. I have this straight from Rockstar. This is the statement that they released, I believe, to shareholders. After an extended break beginning in the spring of 2019, Dan Houser, Vice President, Creative at Rockstar Games, will be leaving the company. Dan Houser's last day will be March 11th, 2020. We are extremely grateful for his contributions, and they continue a little bit after that point. This is big news if you know anything about Dan Houser and the role he's played with everything from GTA to Max Payne to Red Dead Redemption, Bully. He's had a hand in pretty much everything Rockstar and co-founded it, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he did. He was the co-founder, and he's pretty much had his hands in the company and his hands in every almost game they've made. Like, he always, he was that name when you think of Rockstar. So it's not weird necessarily because it has been a long time. You have to see that look what he succeeded. I know it's not only him, but he did kind of like rein everyone in and keep him, because you got to remember they were cranking out Grand Theft Auto games like crazy, cranking out all these other games like crazy, and then you had GTA 4, and then you had GTA 5, which look at the money it's making.
One of the most successful games of all time.
Still, exactly. And then Red Dead Redemption 2 critically acclaimed.
That just sold. They just released what? It sold like over 20 million, like 29 million or something like that.
So it's nuts. I mean, it's interesting for you to be able to be like, because you have to assume part of Rockstar is doing Grand Theft Auto 6.
They have to be.
That you wouldn't want to kind of stay on, because
it just makes me wonder, like, what happened?
Yeah, it's a lot of that's a lot of money you're leaving on the table. So to be just like, oh, I'm over. Again, we don't know if there's a personal thing, bigger offer, which I kind of doubt, because what company would be able to not buy you out, but persuade you?
Dan Houser, like
persuade you to leave Rockstar. Persuade you, like everyone knows what GTA does, like especially Grand Theft Auto 5. What it's done, the microtransaction money it's ringing in, the billion, you know, it's on the most sold game almost every month. So for you to be able to walk away from that, it's got to be something big, or you're just over it almost, or you're just ready to move on to something else.
And hopefully it's something not too problematic. I hope he wasn't like forced out or anything like that. But yeah, this is big news for someone on that level to leave. I mean, that's like Neil Druckmann leaving Naughty Dog.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere, just randomly. Not to mention, Rockstar's almost never been doing this good. They're coming off 2 massive successes, one of the biggest games in the modern era with GTA, and then Red Dead in its own regard. Who would have thought a cowboy game, all these years after the first one, doing as well as it has? The monetization's there. They're making big money. They have overwhelmingly demand for new properties to come out. So what could prompt them to leave at this point? I don't know. Hopefully the story, if we get any additional info, is maybe he just felt like it was time to move on or stuff like that. So we'll keep an eye on it, and if there's any updates, we'll be sure to let you guys know.
Yeah, hopefully everything's okay with everyone though. So next on the list, Phil Spencer, our good boy over there, on the next gen battle, not being with Nintendo and Sony, actually that their main competitors are almost Amazon and Google, which at first I read and I was like, weird statement.
Yeah.
And then I kind of looked into what he's talking about, and pretty much, again, like he says, there's no disrespect to Nintendo and Sony, but the traditional gaming companies are somewhat out of position. And I kind of understand what he means. It's hard to just want one box that does just gaming. I know that's kind of weird saying, you know, seeing the success of PlayStation 4. If the roles were reversed, would, you know, Microsoft, would they be still saying the same thing? Would they still be kind of pushing all the services if they were making money on their boxes? So it's weird, but I do understand the look at like streaming, memberships. You know, Apple has like the Apple Arcade, which is very similar to Xbox Game Pass. So he's pretty much trying to future-proof Microsoft and Xbox as a brand, not be left behind.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense where you see the industry is heading and who the big players in that space will be. PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, that's been going on for a while. In some ways, you can predict the move. They're all kind of playing a similar game. You could say that Nintendo's doing its own thing, but PlayStation and Xbox are kind of like two sides of the same coin type situation. But with Google and Amazon, a lot of people will make fun of Google, but what you can say is that they have some smart minds behind them, incredible technical infrastructure, and ungodly amounts of money to throw at it. Same thing with Amazon and for example, and Apple. All these massive forces able to just throw incredible amounts of money into it. So it makes sense for Xbox to keep an eye in there. Not to mention, their focus is not hardware, it's services. And who dominates the service spaces? It's Google, it's Apple. These are the players in that space. So it makes sense to keep. And I saw some media spin trying to make this a thing that's like basically screw PlayStation and Nintendo, they're nothing. These are the guys. That's not really what he's saying. It's that as an industry, we have to keep an eye on. Not to mention, I don't know if you remember, but a couple months back, maybe a year at this point, they announced something that Microsoft and Sony were working on cloud-based streaming together. So obviously they know the potential that these companies have, so much so that they're willing to work together. It is important to note that that was Microsoft and Sony, not necessarily PlayStation and Xbox. So people have to make that differentiation. But no, it makes sense. Without the spin, you keep an eye out on people who could possibly force your hand in terms of what you do going forward. So I'm curious to see what this looks like.
Yeah, you have to just, again, it'd be a different story if Google Stadia was successful and doing things right. Then you'd be worried about them actually doing damage to PlayStation, damage to Microsoft, and, you know, literally giving them a run for their money. They're not, but say there's a Stadia 2 that's way better, that listens to its fan base, that gives you different options, you know, then why would I want to buy game X on PlayStation when I could get it on my phone, laptop, computer, tablet, through Google Stadia? Again, that is not the case, but that's why keeping an eye on them and kind of saying those are the guys you got to watch out for. It's not a bad thing. It's a smart thing.
And obviously the future of gaming is ultimately playing what you want, where you want. Mm-hmm. That's ultimately going to be there. Whether that's here in a generation or 2 generations, eventually it will get to the point where you can only play this on this one box in this one place from this one company is kind of something of the past. And I know the fanboys are not going to like that very much. But eventually it's going to get to a point where these companies are going to have to say, like, this is what we offer in terms of exclusivity on a software level and a service level. Mm-hmm. But in terms of this fixed box, I don't see that necessarily becoming a viable thing in 20, 30 years. So eventually that Stadia model might work if they're able to get the back third-party support. So Stadia is nothing right now, but I won't necessarily count them out because Google has the finances to kind of grind it out until it eventually gets some traction.
Exactly, yeah. You don't have to, like, worry. And both companies are kind of already making, like, Sony hasn't said this, but both companies are already making strides towards that. I mean, PlayStation games are slowly coming to PC. Now, it's never super first-party games. I think Horizon's really going to be the first-party game to be on PC. They've yet to even comment on that, so it's definitely happening. So they're not dumb. Sony feels the same way. They're just not going to say. They're not going to say we're going to put our games elsewhere. They're not going to say we're scared of anyone else or we're watching anyone else or we're going to be influenced by anyone else. But you know they're watching out.
For sure. And if anybody holds out, it's probably going to be Nintendo because they're a little bit slower onto things. And I got to give them the credit. If anyone's going to latch on to their hardware, it's going to be Nintendo. And that's what always has differentiated them. And I got to commend them in that regard. So
yeah, Mario Party 17 is not going to be, won't be on PlayStation or PC anytime soon. No worries.
As much as I'd love to see Breath of the Wild on PC.
God, I wish.
All right, so the 6th story is for y'all retro game fans out here. We have a possible update and interest in making a new Ninja Gaiden. This is from Matt Kim at IGN. So they got a statement from the Neo 2 director, Fumihiko Yasuda, who said, "The core members of the team that work on Ninja Gaiden want to make a new game. We are aware of that some fans wanted Ninja Gaiden more than Neo 2, and they see a lot of games like Sekiro as well, and we see a lot of good inspiration in those games, so we hope to deliver some good news one day." Now, this is not a formal statement that they're working on one, but people like me who love Ninja Gaiden, we're holding out hope. Now, it's important to differentiate the fact that Ninja Gaiden can mean multiple things to different people. To some people, they're thinking Ninja Gaiden Black, like the Xbox era stuff. And then some people like me are hoping like a return to that NES era stuff. So what do you think about this?
I would rather see a return to form, like go back to NES, maybe even recreate the original.
I'd love that.
You know? Because I remember even those games are very hard. And Ninja Gaiden was kind of almost in this realm of impossibly hard game. Not impossibly, but, you know, crazy.
Almost comically hard.
Yeah, almost comically hard games. You know, before the Dark Souls, Sekiro, Neo, Ninja Gaiden was there. Like, if you play Ninja Gaiden and Ninja Gaiden Black on Xbox, those
brutal.
Games, I cannot play them. You know, I think I own one of them, and I've tried tons of time, and they're so hard. I just don't know where this game could live. That's why I want an original 2D version, because in the day you have Sekiro, 2 Neos, where you want another ninja fighting a bunch of kind of big demons, where can you stand on your own? Like, where you have the Neo fan base, you have the Sekiro fan base. Ghost of Tsushima is not really in that aspect, but there's the more casual players. The casual players aren't going to play Ninja Gaiden. Go play the original Ninja Gaiden on well, not the original, but you know, the Ninja Gaiden Black on Xbox. And if you're bold enough, go play the NES ones.
Oh yeah, have fun with that.
And you know, have fun with level 1 because it's impossible. But I'd like to see it return because I am a fan of like Ryu Hayabusa and the kind of style. But I just don't see what can it bring new to the table.
What does that look like in the modern era?
Yeah, in the 3D realm, because it's for the most part it's just
Sekiro. Yeah, no, Sekiro 100% is what a 3D Ninja Gaiden game looks like in 2019, 2020. But we are in kind of like a 2D resurgence now, especially like with Castlevania being back in a soft way through Bloodstained. I would love to see Ninja Gaiden come back and be able to compete on that level. Compete with Igarashi. Now he's bringing that back. So, because if you go back in the day, Castlevania and Ninja Gaiden, there was always that kind of back and forth, like which one do you like better? You got the momentum-based speed of Ninja Gaiden versus the plot precision of Castlevania. So I'd love to see those be able to kind of play against each other in a modern era.
Of course. All right, so next on the news, Outer Worlds delayed on Switch. First, let's give a shout out, and not a shout out, but more of a well wishes to anyone who is suffering from the coronavirus. It is pretty severe.
It's bad, yeah.
It's pretty much kind of almost everywhere, so be careful out there, everyone.
Yeah, best of luck to all you guys who are suffering with that.
But so not too long ago, they did announce the Outer Worlds Switch release date with a trailer, but they also came out and said it's only going to be digital, even though they were selling boxes. They were going to sell physical boxes. It was going to come with a code inside, so which was.
I hate when they do, but
why not just go digital?
Don't get me started.
So, but now they're saying, that they're delaying Outer Worlds on Nintendo Switch due to the coronavirus impacting the team working on the port. To provide enough time to finish development, will now be releasing the physical version on a cartridge, which is good. I've seen some people kind of like saying, "Oh, they're using the coronavirus as
an
excuse just so they can put it on cartridge because people were mad." I don't believe it because they've released games digitally and then released them physically way later. Because I just saw a link on Amazon for Final Fantasy 7 and 8 to be released on a cartridge, and they both already are on their digital. So I kind of do believe it because if they were gonna say, "Well, it will come to cart later on," they would just said that. So I kind of do believe this. Cause I think people are kind of underselling the coronavirus of what it's actually doing to people. You have to realize
the importance of China in the game industry.
China in the game industry is like, well, someone's got to make the stuff. It's got to go processing through people. People have to contact and talk to each other and hand things over. So you have to realize they're just taking precautions. I mean, you have to realize other game events were shut down and delayed indefinitely to avoid the coronavirus. So I don't see them being like, if it was ready to go, they would have been okay, but I believe that. At first, it was a weird article, and I was like, this is a serious thing, so taking precautions is okay. Also, if you've been waiting to play Outer Worlds on Switch and you haven't played it yet, you can wait a little longer. It is a great game. I know we discussed that before, but you'll be fine. You will get your game, so let's put people's health before you playing Outer Worlds. You can play Outer Worlds. There's other options right now. Then you can play it on Switch when everyone's safe.
And I would like to make a clarification. I saw a lot of people in the comment section losing their mind adding Obsidian over this. I have to clarify, the Switch port is being done by Private Division. This is an entirely different team. So everybody coming at Obsidian about this is a different team. Switch ports are its own thing. I know a lot of people don't realize that like porting studios exist. But yeah, this is a Private Division thing. They're a smaller team, so it makes it more likely that something on that level in terms of like a regional illness, for example, can impact development that heavily.
Of course.
All right, so the next story is a possible Crash mobile game. For them to compete with Nintendo on the mobile space. And I added that as a thing. Again, this is entirely a rumor. I noticed this on Twitter, and I wanted to just include this because if this ends up being true, I want to be one of the early ones who has said something about it. But yeah, I saw this on Twitter, and it seems like in some capacity they're working on some kind of Crash, maybe an Endless Runner mobile game. And it makes sense because I don't know if you've seen this, the financial results that Nintendo has released from like their Fire Emblem game. They have that Dragalia Lost or whatever game. They have their Mario game. They have Animal Crossing Pocket Edition, and they're seeing money from that. So it makes sense why Sony in some capacity would be like, well, we want a slice of that pie.
Yeah, it just makes you have to realize that, though Crash has a home on Sony, that it's Activision.
For sure.
Activision's going to see dollar signs. Of course they're going to want.
They know how to make their money.
There've been 2 Crash games on mobile. They were kart racers, and you can't download them anymore. And I know there's a few leaked photos. I don't know. They looked kind of fake, but yeah, it looks like an Endless Runner.
It looked a little cheap.
Running from the boulder, which I completely buy this because they're going to do it. They're going to put microtransactions for characters or whatever, respawn times if you have to wait half an hour or pay 99 cents or watch this ad. Activision's obviously going to do whatever prints them money. The microtransactions in other games on console make them money. Why not put something that was so popular? They see there's an audience with Crash between the Insane trilogy that came to everything and Crash Team Racing, the remake that came to everything, sold crazy. Why not put a it's going to be free to play.
Oh, 100%.
You know, it's going to be a free to play game with tons of microtransaction, buying Wumpa fruit and crystals, diamonds. That game was set up from the 90s for microtransactions. So I kind of believe it. It'll just be kind of a when they're going to announce it, not a if.
Yeah, I'm not particularly that interested in playing it, but just looking at the monetization strategy that Activision has taken in the past and what Crash is, I just see the PS1 game when you're running towards the camera and jumping over and the boulder literally coming behind you. That and Temple Run, these are, it's made for it. So they'd be stupid not to be honest.
I'm surprised it just doesn't exist. It's funny, when I saw this, I'm like, doesn't that exist?
I would have thought by now.
I swore, I was like, I feel like that's existed already. So why they... And then it didn't. And I was like, oh, it's going to exist. It probably does exist. And I mean, I'll download it, play it day one, and as soon as they hit me with that membership or buy 99 cents.
Put no money in there. Hell no.
Okay, bye.
I wish they would take Nintendo strategy. I like the way they monetize their mobile games, but...
Yeah, I played tons of them.
There is not a chance in hell Activision does nothing like that.
No, they want continuous money. So, last on the list, we have quotes on Ubisoft on next-gen backwards compatibility. So this is original article from Joseph Yaden from PlayStation Lifestyle, where they said, consoles will be running almost all the back catalog of the previous consoles. It will be something new in the industry. It will help the old generations to continue to be big consoles on the market for years to come. And that was Yves Guillemot. I don't know how to pronounce Guillemot.
Yeah.
Apologize for butchering that name. I'm terrible with names. But that's them over there at Ubisoft. They're kind of late to the party. We already know backwards compatibility is in the works on both ends, on Sony's side and on, Microsoft's side with Xbox backwards compatibility. So of course they're gonna be there. I understand them kind of just trying to say. You gotta remember, Ubisoft's maybe one of the biggest third-party supporters on all three systems. That's someone you want.
Yeah.
You don't want you don't want Ubisoft to say my games aren't coming to you, so that's good. Backwards compatibility will be hopefully the more games you can get moving forward, the better. If you can still sell, all the Watch Dogs again, good for you. Without having to recreate them, remaster them. If it means now you can go purchase it again, carries over. The more the better, honestly. I don't know if you have much to say on.
Well, not too much, but going into the next gen, we're going to start hearing more and more people talk about it, and sometimes they're going to beat out the publisher themselves in terms of announcements. So we knew in some capacity this is just further confirmation. It makes sense for sure, and it makes sense why it'd come from a Ubisoft and not a way smaller developer, because there's no real ramifications. Theoretically, if Ubisoft or EA, for example, said something like, oh yeah, this important detail about next gen, and Sony's pissed off about that, what are you going to do? Ban Ubisoft games, ban EA games? There's no chance in hell. So it makes sense why Yves Guillemot would say something about it. And I'm curious to see, not to mention the way this was phrased, it's kind of ambiguous. It could mean multiple things. He could be confirming the straight up existence of backwards compatibility on next gen. Also, he could be in some ways announcing a kind of port strategy on Ubisoft's side. So maybe he's not saying necessarily that all games will play natively, but that Ubisoft specifically are very much committed to bringing their previous titles on there, because they have their own streaming service.
They do.
So who knows, that he could be referring to that as well, that they're going to have some kind of integration into PS5 and Xbox Series X, where all the backward compatibility or the backward collection of games that Ubisoft has published in the past will be available. So you can play Far Cry 3 and 4 and New Dawn on the next gen console day one through Uplay or whatever the Ubisoft.
I don't even remember I know Uplay's their launcher on PC. I forgot what they even call
whatever their streaming service is. Maybe it's referring to that.
Maybe more, because that just launched on PlayStation 4 last year, but that was only a few months ago for us. So you could be right. Maybe they're trying to say that's more integrated, because on PC you have a vast library of games, subscription based, where you pay them. I think it's $10. You can download their games. Maybe that's what it means. Hopefully it's more that option. Maybe you can stream it on the next gen. Maybe you can download them if you don't want to stream it. So that is true, where you have more of that option. But yeah, like you said, they can pretty much come out and say to a certain extent anything they want. You're not gonna be like, well, you can't put your Ubisoft games. Do you imagine like if Ubisoft was like, no, you can only get Ubisoft games on Microsoft consoles?
Yeah,
that would be a huge game changer. So that's why they're pretty okay. And again, they didn't say anything too damning to like crazy, like PlayStation has 3 lights on it or something dumb like that. So they're just kind of talking about where their games are going because they're such a big player.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that's all the stories we have for you guys this week. And now we're going to have our little loose subject at the end to discuss. And basically, we're going to talk about our most anticipated next-gen games. Mm-hmm. Now, there's no real hard rules that we set on that. This is just what we'd like to see in this next generation. So if you want to go first, go ahead.
So in the next generation, do we want to go off announced games or...
I was okay with a mix of both. Things that we know is going to happen and things we can realistically hope is going to happen.
So, coming on Sony, I do want them to bring back a shooter. I don't have a specific shooter in mind. Just Killzone. Because you do have, they're sitting on Killzone, Resistance.
Oh, I would love Resistance.
I would love either of them to come back, obviously, because I didn't want to go with, because obviously we're getting the God of War sequel. Horizon's getting whatever they call the sequel. So when I want to see a next-gen game from them, I do want to see... I would love to see a hardcore shooter come back via more like a Wolfenstein, where it's a single-player dedicated, or Metro, single-player dedicated shooter. Knowing Sony, they're going to try to tack on probably a multiplayer some form. I'd rather them not, because Killzone and Resistance are such vast worlds with endless stories. So I would love to see either of those series come back. And I know one of them will probably come back. Hopefully even... I would love it for it to be a launch. I doubt it. Killzone was a launch title for PlayStation 4 and it did okay just because it was a launch title though. So that's my first is really claims. I want that.
Okay. One of my first is in some form a new Mass Effect game. Now I know this is coming. And I'm praying it's not Andromeda 2. I hope they find a way to retcon the hell out of that and do a Mass Effect 4. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know. But I feel like at some point we're going to get it. And I feel like they have the potential to do something great. Now, I know BioWare is not in the best graces right now. I know people are not loving them too much after the Andromeda and then the Anthem debacle and all that. But I still have faith that next-gen Mass Effect game can really shake the game industry up. And I recently replayed the trilogy in 2019, and I had a phenomenal time with it. I started Andromeda after I finished 3, and I promptly stopped it for good reason. Anybody who played Andromeda understands what I'm saying, but...
Those face animations,
they fixed a lot of it.
I know they did fix a lot, but the thing is, people... it's not like people say it's like, oh, it's where the game ends up. The game ended up pretty fine. That's not what people wanted. You had huge shoes to fill. I think they made smart moves not calling it Mass Effect 4. They were going to call it Mass Effect Andromeda, which is really separating yourself from the previous one. You're not even in the same galaxy.
So much potential.
And then you just really I don't know, you bit the bullet on it, and you had this it's funny because the gameplay's solid. The gameplay is solid. It's everything else. The lore, the world, the design.
It's just so uninteresting.
Also, the game just kind of didn't work at launch, which is huge. That's something you're going to suffer from.
Just replaying them, there's just like a magic to them. These characters, just these races, the Citadel, like all these great set pieces that they set up there, and for it to go so left... just blows my mind. But it just tells me that one thing, it holds up amazingly. So I know in some capacity, and I know EA doesn't do this very much, but in some capacity we're going to see those original titles come back in some kind of remaster, rebuilt type of way, for sure, no doubt. That in some capacity those games are coming back, and I have faith that a 5th game can come back and really reestablish what Mass Effect means in the modern era without being Andromeda. So I have a lot of faith.
Do you think they push Andromeda or completely just ignore it?
I think they pivot from what Andromeda sets up. I just don't see it.
So throw away Ryder? Right? That's the character's name.
Yeah, I think they do a soft reboot, man. I think they don't necessarily get rid of the continuity they set up in the first 3 in Andromeda, but they find a way to harken back to the spirit of the originals without necessarily crapping all over what they set up in Andromeda. There's no way they just retcon Andromeda as much as I'd love it.
No,
there's no. If Star Wars doesn't throw away the prequels, then they're not throwing away Andromeda.
Sure.
100%. They spent too much money and too much resources and too many writers. Writers on that. No pun intended.
Yeah.
So in some way, maybe they stick around in Andromeda. Maybe it is an Andromeda 2, but it's like a soft reboot in terms of they find a way to connect it to Shepard in some capacity. Now, no spoilers. With the way 3 ended, it's pretty finite. So I don't expect them to do a straight up Mass Effect 4. Guess what? What happened in 3 at the end didn't happen, and they get the Dragon Balls and bring them back. There's no way they do that, but I find a way that they're clever enough to soft reboot it without crapping all over the previous continuity.
That's true, and there is one. Again, no spoilers. There is one ending they could work off. We'll talk off camera, even though it's a very slight.
It's open enough.
It's just enough to be like, all right. And he's gonna come save the series
for sure.
We'll see. I would love for that to come back because I haven't gotten the chance to play through all of them. I've dabbled a little bit in 2. I played a lot of 3. I had a fun time playing Andromeda, but I would love for that series to come back and back to its roots though a little bit, pull it back a little bit. So next gen on my list, and it's a game that's coming. I just know it's not gonna be the game I want. I want Final Fantasy 16, whatever it's called, to be an RPG again.
Yeah.
As someone who spent like 45 hours in Final Fantasy 15, I understand what it was. I understand the development hell it went through. I understand that it was canceled. Spoiler, it was canceled. People, they don't talk about it. Square won't talk about it. The game was canceled. I mean, you went from a spin-off to canceled to
13 versus 13
versus
or something
13.
Like that,
There's even recycled stuff from Versus 13 and the new Kingdom Hearts. In Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind, they kind of just knocked this out, put someone else in there, and then shot for shot use those scenes.
Wow, really?
Yeah, no.
I wasn't aware.
Oh no, it's wild. I just want Final Fantasy to be back to Final Fantasy. I want them to lose this kind of realistic aspect. Go back to like Final Fantasy 6 even, where you have almost this. Yes. Hey, just bring it back a little bit because Final Fantasy 15 was great. I enjoyed my time with it, but it was an open world for open world's sake.
Yeah.
I don't want hallway simulator like Final Fantasy 13. And I think, though Final Fantasy 16, it will be at some point. Final Fantasy 7 Remake is probably going to be taking up a lot of time because you got to realize it's a joke. They know it's a joke. They know it's a meme where this game's never going to end because it's roughly going to be 4 parts. I just want Final Fantasy 16 to be Final Fantasy again. I wanted a good RPG. Those games still sell. Persona sells, and that's more of a traditional RPG. Dragon Quest is super traditional and grindy. I think they can find a good middle place for Final Fantasy to exist, and I think it's more about that style, whether they go full far back to like 1, 2, 3, where it's like knights and the armors. Those are really cool. And leave the cyber stuff alone because we have enough stuff jumping forward. There's a middle space you're kind of missing, and that's just a franchise that, I say I want it, and it will be here. I know it's not going to be the game I want.
Well, when the 7 remake comes in, I think we're going to really finally see what a modern take on a classic looks like, and with the small adjustments they're making to the combat mechanism but still keeping the core mechanics of 7. I think that's ultimately what I think both of us want to see from Final Fantasy. Now, first off, before I get into it, I need to admit my bias. I am very much biased to the older games. 9's kind of my personal cutoff. I like 9, I like 6, I like 5. 7's great too. After that point, they're just really not for me. So by the time we got to 15, I can concede the great things they've done for that. I'm playing it now, so this is kind of my first real jump into it. I got it when it came out, and I played 3 hours of it, and something distracted me at the time, so I never went back to it. So I'm playing it now, and I'm enjoying it for what I've only gotten about an hour and a half in. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. For what it is, I have to almost in my mind tell me like it's not Final Fantasy, because my idea of Final Fantasy is 6. That's the one I played the most. That's the one I grew up on. That's the one, the way I like it. Personally, I like the hardcore RPG. The fact that I can walk in a million places is too much. It's weird to me. But I have to kind of put my biases aside. And yeah, the hybrid is what I want to see. And 7 Remake, I think, is going to ultimately be that. We'll see how long that takes to come out in its completion. I got to pre-order it. I'm ready to go when that comes out.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. They want to have it set to come. I don't want the game to play itself. That was a big issue with Final Fantasy 15 and even Final Fantasy the 313s we got. You know, are all almost they have auto play sections, auto fight sections, and you're right. Probably Final Fantasy 7 remake will probably hit that best of both worlds.
That active time battle.
Yeah, I'll probably be satisfied with that enough that I probably would be like, 16 is fine, you know. But like you said, same with me. My favorite Final Fantasy is 9. So anything after that, I'm currently playing Final Fantasy 10 or Final Fantasy X. And let me tell you, come at me if you want. I will fight all day long. That game sucks.
Yeah.
That game is terrible. And it's not just the voice acting and it's not the awkward animations because I understand the time it was made. It's the battle system, the skill tree, which is that weird orb thing.
Yeah.
You got to play like checkers to upgrade. It just doesn't make any sense. So from there on, they really lost their way, I believe. I just hope it's reeled in a little bit and you can hit that sweet spot again.
And I will give a shout out to 14 also. That I know that's more on the MMO side, but they're really killing it over there for what that is.
Yeah.
But on the console side, I think that the 7 remake will really establish what we need. The farther we get away from anything remotely like 10, and again, everybody's fondness for that. I will fight to the day I die.
Yeah.
That is nostalgia. Go back to that game and replay it critically. With an objective view, that game is terrible.
No,
There's nothing great about it. I hate that.
I have zero fun. I played it when it came out. I played it on Vita, and I played it now recently on PlayStation 4 and a little bit on Switch. It's just not good.
I don't get it.
It's not good.
I don't get people.
You swim a lot. It's kind of boring. Nobody wants to. I can't. Also, just the characters are kind of terrible. So. What's your next game?
All right, so
next
this is
genre?
one that has been announced already, but I think about it on a pretty regular basis, which is the next Zelda game, Breath of the Wild 2, or whatever they ultimately call it. I recently actually fired up Breath of the Wild just because I wanted to play it. I just wanted to hear those sound effects, be in that world for a little bit, and man, I cannot wait for this game. I don't know when it's coming out. I don't know if it's going to come tied with some kind of Switch Pro. Hopefully it's like 2020, end of 2020, 2021. I hope it's not that far off. But, man, talk about a masterpiece that first one is. And I can't wait to see what a darker takes on that. I'm hoping for like the Majora to Ocarina type situation. I'm hoping for a darker take on Breath of the Wild and that the visuals they showed in the little teaser hold up to what the full game is.
No, for sure. Because, again, Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is, I believe... Trying to run through them really quick in my head. It's my favorite Zelda story.
Yeah, for me.
Because of how dark, realistic, and just gloomy. Zelda fits that because it is a dark, glooming world.
Go back to that. It is depressing.
And, you know, even if you go a little bit more into Ocarina of Time, when you jump to Adult Link,
yeah,
it's the world's destroyed, Ganon's ruled, and it's terrible. Everyone's dead, and that's kind of the thing it fits. So, as someone who was kind of lukewarm to Breath of the Wild, don't get me wrong, I played a ton of it. There was also nothing else to play on Switch launch. Bomberman R. I mean, come on.
Oof.
So you only had Breath of the Wild, and I did enjoy my time, but the whole time I was just like, it's missing just a few little, like, staples of Zelda, like, generations that it's always had. Dungeons. I just want dungeons back. I don't want 1,500 mini dungeons. I want dungeons back, and I want a more comprehensive story, because you could play all of Breath of the Wild without unlocking, the photo cutscenes.
Very subtle the way the storytelling.
No, just give me a story, a little bit better story. The voice acting, as long as you didn't play it, as long as you change the voice acting to Japanese, you're good. Yeah. The English voice acting is just a little rough.
Not for me.
No, yeah. So I'm on the same page. I can't wait for the Breath of the Wild 2 because I know it's just going to be better.
And since all the legwork of setting up that world and getting that engine running and stuff like that is done, I'm hoping for a faster turnaround, and it'll be easier for them to not make the same concessions they had to make the first time to hit that deadline. That's why I feel like maybe the Divine Beast system was established as just time constraints, building that world and stuff like that, the lack of a story. And that's kind of the one major critique people have, as much as people love Breath of the Wild. It's just that lack of a core story there. And when they announced the DLC, the Champions Ballad thing, I got really, really excited. I'm like, okay, finally, they're going to put the story in there. And they didn't really do that. It was a little bit of supplementary gameplay material, stuff like that, which is great in its own regard. But yeah, that's all they do. They get that story and that world with that real subtle, beautiful piano soundtrack that they set up, and there's nothing holding this back from being one of the best games of all time, for real.
I think the sequel will definitely deserve it because, like you said, they have the basis ready, and you gotta remember also Breath of the Wild suffered because it was a Wii U game. This was a Wii U game that was announced forever ago. I mean, if you go look at the original Zelda Wii U art style they showed in that trailer where like Link's in there, he's super realistic. He looks very much like Twilight Princess. So it is a giant step sideways what they did with the artwork. But again, you have the basis now. You have the hardware. They've been making games on that hardware forever now. You're probably looking, I hope 2021, the latest. It'll probably be close to the Switch Pro Plus bundle.
Whatever that looks like.
Whatever it looks like. So, yeah, I can't wait either. I do want, again, like you said, like a Majora's Mask feeling game. And from the trailer we saw, that's what it looks like. Also, not always by yourself. It looks like he's more with Zelda in that time.
That would be really cool. Like companion type
situation? Yeah, like a companion, like a little, some sort of
the Ellie to your Joel.
Yeah, give you Zelda. Let her do something.
That'd be
because she kind of sits around, does nothing. But whatever.
Link.
Yeah.
Scream at you.
That's scream what she Yeah. Put it in the new Navi. So for my last game, I want to come back, and I feel like it will after they suffer a few more blows, and that's the Soul Reaver games.
Okay.
Which I believe Crystal Dynamics still owns the IP, so it's in between Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix to really crank this game out. I think there's a niche for that kind of spot. When a game like Devil May Cry comes out that's super like metal, we'll say it's super metal, super rock, and that's its own kind of game. When you have a game that's a little bit more dialed back, that darkness, the atmosphere, Soul Reaver, it's in a point where you can reboot it and people won't be mad that it's rebooted, but also you can fix the mistakes of the original PlayStation 2 versions and all that kind of stuff. You know, in a world that we have tons of zombies, the vampire kind of feel will maybe be a little bit better. I know we have like Vampire Masquerade 2 or those are kind of like almost dating sims from what I see. I just want this franchise to come back, and I feel like it'll come back once they're done shooting themselves in the foot with this Avengers game and whatever else they have in the pipeline.
Well, yeah, and unlike DMC, it doesn't have that kind of established fan base despite all these years that passed. So this is really their opportunity to kind of show people what this game really means. And they were able to do that with Medieval, for example. They had their old fans, and then they brought in a whole bunch of new people where they're like, oh, this game's really good. And so Soul Reaver coming back would be really dope. I did not expect you to say that. I haven't heard that name in forever.
No, I love that. I love that franchise, and I have one of them at home, and it just, though it does play, you know, a little bit weird, and I just think revamped almost like, when I see like what they did with Tomb Raider, with a little bit more hand-to-hand combat or more of a hack-and-slash combat and the flying abilities and stuff like that, I just feel like it would work so well. And artistically, I feel like they can probably nail it because it doesn't have to be something super realistic. It could. I doubt they'll do it because that's kind of a lot of money, and you really can't do so much mocap for that. I just want that franchise back, at least. If not, at least give me a remastered somehow. If Bluepoint wasn't busy, I know they would.
They'd be perfect for it. God. Perfect.
But they're busy doing whatever they're doing.
They're in demand. If you want to talk about like an in-demand team now, after that what was it,
They did the Shadow of Colossus.
Yeah, Shadow of Colossus. After that, everybody wants them to bring their games back. So they're gonna have a busy next gen. So my last one is something that Xbox already showed off, but it's Hellblade: Senua's Saga, and I recently returned back to the original one after playing it before. And man, I cannot wait to see where they go with this. Now with some real money behind them. That game's trippy. And there's not too many games that have really impacted me in that way. And then displayed kind of schizophrenic breakdowns and dark imagery and somebody grappling with their past with really kinetic gameplay. That's an underrated mechanic of that game too. Not too many people talk about how great the combat is in Hellblade. Have you gotten the chance to play that?
I recently after Microsoft showed the sequel at was it E3 or the XO19?
I believe it was
or Game Awards. I believe actually
it was Game Awards.
Game Awards. So when they showed the Game
Series
Awards,
X was coupled with it.
Exactly. So I immediately went to Xbox Game Pass on PC, downloaded it, and I remember starting it on like a Friday night because I think I even texted you. I was like, "Hey, trying this game out. So far, so good." Then that next day, I really got into it. It was like a dark, stormy day outside. I put my headset on. I had a nice big cup of coffee. and I knocked it out in one shot, and I enjoyed every second of it. Like the way it almost plays like a horror game and also plays like a slashing game, like a hack and slash, but more like restraint, like a God of War. I just loved it. The lore of it, the such simple story of like she just wants to bring her boyfriend or husband or what. They never really specified. I know it's her lover. She wants to bring him back, but like the whole time, like the way the voices are telling you, your own voices are telling you that's like it's hopeless. You're not gonna do it, and no spoilers of what the ending is. I kind of didn't think we were ever into this. It's funny because I knew it was a sequel coming. If I had played that prior to, I thought it ended right where it needed to, and there wouldn't be a sequel. Now it looks like they're really doubling down on the sequel with the imagery, the blood. She looks like completely insane.
Yeah. Way more powerful too.
Yeah, way more powerful. And you got that a little bit from the ending. Again, not gonna try to spoil it.
Yeah.
But from the ending, where she kind of what happens at the end, she accepts. So I can't wait. That's true with that. I can't wait, and I hope this is a series that just slowly, every few years, like one game drips out. Because this game released at a discount price. I believe this game came out at $30, and now it's on all these other services and stuff like that. So no, I completely agree with you for Hellblade.
It tells me now, seeing what Ninja Theory did in that game, seeing them with the Microsoft acquisition and getting that real budget behind them, I feel like in the PS5, Xbox Series X generation, they're going to become one of those A-list teams where you're going to have the Naughty Dogs, you're going to have the Initiative C, whatever they come up with, you're going to have the Insomniacs, and then Ninja Theory is going to be right up there. If Hellblade 2 really hits the way it needs to, that's going to put them in that echelon with the CyberConnect, or not CyberConnect, who does The Witcher?
CD Projekt Red.
CD Projekt Red, not CyberConnect. But that's going to really put them on that level. So I'm curious to see what the future holds for them.
No, yeah, that'll be something that they wear with pride. Where like Naughty Dog's like we're Uncharted, Last of Us. They wear that with pride. That's going to be like their game,
for them.
Which is good because they've always been kind of lost where they kind of make these little
things here and there. Yeah.
Things here and there, third party, and people don't really like respect them. This is really gonna put them like they're with the big boys now, and we make masterpieces. Like that game won tons of awards. If you go buy a copy now, it's like
littered
all over the cover with awards, and rightfully so. From sound to design to gameplay to story, it's all spot on.
And what takes developers to that next level is not only their ability to do one thing right, but to have that kind of complete picture. And for a long time, Ninja Theory, we could always say their games feel great. But what they showed with Hellblade is not only can we make a game that feels amazing, but a game that really communicates real dark and heavy themes to you in a real effective way. So their storytelling game is on another level. And I would say if I had to make a list of top 5 storytellers in the game, they're right around there. And Hellblade 2 might take them into that echelon. And that's what takes them to the next level is people like a Naughty Dog's ability to make games that feel amazing, but also tell these real resonating stories.
For sure. Again, staying on with Naughty Dog, if you take the story from this game and then put it compared to like Uncharted 1 and 2, I know Uncharted 2 is a fantastic game, but most of those stories, there's no real spoiler because there's nothing that really goes on. He wants the treasure, goes through a bunch of stuff.
It's kind of just Indiana Jones.
It's really just Indiana Jones. Not until maybe there's always like near the end where the character development is what feels really great. And this one, in Hellblade, since you have so few characters, you really dive into who these characters are, especially the main character. You really get to know who she is, and I felt like bad for her because she wants something so simple. She just wants him back. And you see some of the trauma she went through, and the way you experience that trauma between the voices, the cutscenes, when you see her suffering, like it just gets to you, and it's just so good.
Anyone who's ever dealt with loss in any capacity, especially or mental illness in any way, that you can instantly connect to this game. So I think going forward, this is going to be regarded as one of the top games of this generation, and who knows, Hellblade 2 might be the same thing for the next generation. So that's all I got for all the next gen games I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, and hopefully, we're not too far out, but we're going to start hearing bigger announcements from these next gens.
And anything we learn, we'll let you guys know as the show continues. Thank you for listening to our second episode. We got more to come every Sunday.
Yeah.
And till next time, this is NeoVintage Gaming.
All right, guys, take care.